Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is once again the ASMR Nerd, and thank you for joining me for part 2 of my 2-year channel update Q&A video. Today's video is going to be all of your questions about gaming and gaming related things, and there are a lot of them. I'm going to skip the lengthy preamble this time. If you're just joining us now, I definitely recommend you go back and check out part 1, at least the first 5 or 10 minutes, just to get up to speed on what's going on, or not. That probably doesn't really matter now that I think about it. Anyway, you guys asked a lot of questions. I will try and have a lot of answers. Last episode ran for over an hour, and I only got a small portion of the way through the questions. So I'm going to try and make it a little bit faster this time. I will once again be trying to attribute questions to the people who asked them, but there's a good chance I might mess it up. So if I forget to say your name, or say that you asked a question that you didn't, or pronounce your name wrong, or those sorts of things, then my apologies. But doing the best I can. So let's just dive straight into it. Question time. The first gaming related question, asked by Rollout Vlogs and Zamster101, is what is your favorite video game franchise? I gotta go with the Elder Scrolls. That's probably no big surprise. It's a bit of a cop-out answer, really. But the Elder Scrolls games have been some of my favorites since Morrowind. I didn't play Arena or Daggerfall when they released anyway. I was a bit young for that, I guess. So I've tried them out since, and they're good. You know, they're for their time. I can see how they were quite innovative, especially Daggerfall with its procedurally generated landmass and all that stuff. But Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, definitely my favorites in that series. And runners up would be the X-Wing and TIE Fighter series. I love those. The Jedi Knight series, and the Age of Empires series, I'd say. Oh, and the Thief series, and Pokemon. Okay, so that's like 5. That's not my favorite. That's my favorite 5 game series, but I love them all so much. Okay, Daft Beats wants to know what my favorite game right now is, that I'm playing right this moment. I recently, or in the last month or two, sort of modded my Skyrim again, and I've been having a blast with a new character there, sneaky stealthy archer type, which is fairly different than my last character I played, who was a melee bruiser, and I'm really enjoying continuing to mod that. I'm also playing a lot of Guild Wars 2 right now, which just recently had an expansion announced, Heart of Thorns, which is very exciting for those of us who have been playing for a long time since release. And yeah, I guess those are my favorite games right now. Those are the ones that kind of come to mind. So Adil Manzoor wants to know, have I ever played Fallout 3 or New Vegas? Yeah, I've played them, and I enjoy them. I played a lot more Fallout 3 than I did of New Vegas, which is, from what I gather, a bit of a shame, because a lot of people say New Vegas is the better of the games. But yeah, I played them both, and I've tried my hand at modding Fallout 3 as well, with limited success. It was okay, but it wasn't very stable. But I haven't played either of them for a number of years, so I should go back. I should reinstall those. Timo Palmer wants to know, what is your most nostalgic gaming related experience? Well, those of you who've watched my Hocus Pocus videos on the channel will know that I have a lot of nostalgia for that game. When I go way back into the deep dark history of my gaming past, the first games that I ever played, I want to say I played like Solitaire a lot. Well, I know I did. On Windows 3.1, because it's was one of the like 3 games we had on our PC, which is the only gaming platform I had access to at the time. And we had a little game called Alien Force, I think, which was basically just a grid that you flew around in a little white starship, and you shot bullets at red starships, and you could only turn at right angles around this grid. And the bullets sort of traversed slowly, moved slowly, so the enemies had time to like dodge out of the way and stuff. It was very basic, but that is a game that I remember. I guess it's not my most nostalgic, but it's just one of the oldest games the oldest gaming memories I have. But yeah, Hocus Pocus, Diablo, the first Diablo, brings a lot of nostalgia for me. Warcraft 2, oh man, very nostalgic. Civilization 2, strongly nostalgic for me. The first Age of Empires, lots of really good nostalgia associated with that. You might notice a theme. I was a PC gamer primarily in my younger years. My parents, when I was younger, didn't let me have a console, but they let me play on PC, which is kind of weird. Go figure. That was their logic. But so most of my console gaming in the NES and SNES era was done at friends' houses. And I do have a lot of nostalgia for a lot of those games as well. Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, Donkey Kong Country, Returns, is that the one on SNES? I can't remember off the top of my head now. Yeah, so anyway, I gotta hurry up with these. Just keep talking. I'm so verbose. Conjumbled Spices, that name I like, once again, wants to know, who's your favorite video game villain or boss, and why? That is a tough question. Maybe not for the reasons that you think it is. That's a tough question for me because I am notoriously awful at actually finishing games, like really bad. And I don't even really have a good reason why. I get often bored with games, I guess. So I'm thinking through video game villains and bosses. I also find that a lot of time end boss battles are kind of lacking. Like they seem like a bit of a letdown after all the build-up. And a lot of the games I played over the years didn't really have end bosses, I guess. But I'm gonna go with, for whatever reason, the one that comes to mind right now when I'm thinking about it is from Jedi Knight 2? No, sorry. Dark Forces 2. Jedi Knight. The first Jedi Knight game. Which was, I want to say came out in 1997. You play as Kyle Katarn, mercenary, come Jedi. Anyway, there's one point, and this is spoilers, I guess, if you consider spoilers for a game from 1997 to be spoilers. But the second to last boss battle, you fight against a dark Jedi called Bok, and he's a Twi'lek. I think he's got 2 lightsabers, and he was the most freaking annoying boss that I can remember in my history of gaming. He bounced around this level. He would just force jump all over the place, and he was super fast. and he'd fire these like destruction balls at you, and he was just laughing. He was kind of like an insane character. So yeah, super random pull on that one, but for whatever reason, Bach is what comes to mind. I guess that doesn't make him my favorite. I guess that makes him my least favorite. I don't know. Anyway, William Sheedy asks, what game have you spent the most time on? I don't know for certain, but I have a sneaking suspicion that Guild Wars 1 probably holds the record for the most hours that I put into a game. I've certainly got somewhere north of 1,000 hours into that game. I never really got bitten by the WoW bug. I never put many hours into WoW. Barely played it at all, actually. So, and not a lot of other MMOs ever really grabbed my attention the way the first Guild Wars did. It helped a lot that it did not have a monthly sub, because when I started playing it, I did not have a credit card. So, yeah, Guild Wars 2 I've put a lot of time into as well. I know I have said in other videos that I play it casually, and I kind of do. Like, I'm not hardcore about it, but I just play it regularly. And so I've got something like 800 plus hours into Guild Wars 2 so far. I've got a lot of hours into Team Fortress 2, which is a game I don't talk about very often on the channel. But I played a lot of TF2 back in university. And I was even like semi-competitive for a while. We were in a minor league, but it was a lot of fun. So I put probably 600 or 700 hours into TF2, which is crazy when you think about it, I guess. But I made lots of good friends through TF2. And Skyrim probably ranks up there somewhere as well, with several hundred hours. More if you include all the time that I spend modding, but several hundred hours playing. Ricky Lowe wants to know, what's your most memorable multiplayer gaming moment and why? I've had a lot of good multiplayer gaming moments, but the one that I'm thinking of right now that kind of popped into my head is a moment from Team Fortress 2. We were playing on Gravel Pit, which for those of you who have never played the game probably means nothing to you, but it's a map where you capture control points, and there's one attacking team and one defending team, and for some reason I just got in my head that I needed to convince the entire attacking team, which I was on, to play as engineers, which, again, if you play the game, you'll know is like a highly defensive class, not the best offensive class. More offensive now than it used to be, but this was OG TF2 before all the new items and crap. So anyway, we managed to push and capture all 3 capture points as a team of nothing but engineers, which was just hilarious and a lot of fun. It was just really good team camaraderie. It was just a fun time. And really funny. So we'll say that for my most memorable multiplayer moment. Top 3 games of all time, asked by Greenhouse Stan. You guys and your questions, favorite this and that. I always have such a hard time picking. I already gave my favorite series, but I'm gonna say number 3, I'm going to say Diablo 2. I played a lot of Diablo 2, and I love the soundtrack and the aesthetic, and just I got hooked on the loot grind for that game for a long time, but fond memories of Diablo 2. Bail runs for days. Number 2, I'm going to say TIE Fighter. I really love a lot of other games, but TIE Fighter holds a very special place in my heart. Because I really love Star Wars, and as a youngster, playing TIE Fighter was like fulfilling my ultimate Star Wars fantasy, being an awesome TIE Fighter pilot, getting to fly TIE interceptors, TIE defenders, TIE advanced and stuff. And yeah. And it was just a really good game. Hard, actually, now that I returned to it. Picked it up off of GOG a little while ago. It was a freaking hard game. And number 1, I'm going to go with Morrowind. The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. And maybe some of these games should have showed up on my most nostalgic games list as well. But Morrowind was my introduction to the Elder Scrolls. It was just such a unique and original and alien fantasy world, unlike anything I'd seen before or really seen since. Goodness knows I love Skyrim a lot, but I think Morrowind edges it out for my favorite game ever, I guess. Noah DeJesus, I don't know how you pronounce it, but Noah wants to know if I've played the Battlefield games, including the Hardline beta. No. Well, that's not true. I played Battlefield 1942 way back in the day. I played some Battlefield 2. I sort of lost track of the series around Vietnam and 2142. I never really picked up Battlefield 3. I own it, but I've never really played it much. And I do not have Battlefield 4 and have not played it. Nor have I played in the Hardline beta. However, my younger brother was in the Hardline beta, and I watched him play a bit of it a while back. It looked like a Battlefield game, sort of reskinned to be cops and robbers, I guess. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. I have, however, played the Battlefront games, Battlefront 1 and 2, the Star Wars kind of Battlefield equivalents, which they weren't Battlefield games and they weren't developed by that team. But now, the new Battlefront game that's currently being developed is being developed by DICE, who are the Battlefield guys. So I'm really keen to see what they do with Battlefront. Henhouse wants to know if I watch any Let's Players on YouTube, which might have been a more appropriate question for last video, but here it is. But I sort of answered it last video as well. The answer is not really, not regularly. I occasionally will, just if the video happens to come up, but none that I watch routinely. And I don't really have a good reason why not. I just tend to spend my time at the computer doing other stuff, I guess. Revered Inventor asks Microsoft, Sony or Nintendo, and why? If we're talking in terms of like games and consoles, Nintendo. Why? Because they have the best original first-party stuff. Anything that Microsoft or Sony does on their machines, I can, or almost anything, I can get on PC, which is where I play most of my games. But Nintendo has just those awesome first-party games, the Marios, the Zeldas, the Pokemons, all that stuff that you can't get anywhere else, and that tickle the old nostalgia bone. Yeah. I probably should have listed Pokemon in my top nostalgic games as well. Pokemon Gen 1 and 2, definitely up there. Anyway, so Nintendo. My favorite less popular or underrated game, asked by Mrs. Something Sick and Spiritual Shit. Or Spirit 7, you all shit 7. It's a good question. Underrated games, or less popular games. It's a tough one. Nothing new or current that I can think of, but my mind goes back to a game It must have come out around 2003 or 4 or something like that. I couldn't tell you exactly when, but I think it was called Rise and Fall: Empires at War. And it was a real-time strategy game, but it had a really cool feature where you could like zoom right down and take over like a third-person over-the-shoulder control of heroes on the battlefield. So you could order your guys around, then you could zoom in, and the heroes had like wicked attacks and cool powers, and they would just like decimate enemy armies. The game was a little bit like janky, I guess, from what I remember. And I don't think it was reviewed very well. I think a lot of people did not like it, was not critically acclaimed, but I just thought it was really neat. You could also like ram like ships. It was set in the ancient world, right? Like, Greco-Roman stuff, but you could ram like triremes into one another and like board and stuff. It was cool. It had a lot of very neat features that I have not seen before or since. Yeah, it was not very popular, but underrated in my opinion. I don't know why that's what comes to mind. There's probably better options, but again, it seems to be the theme here. Just strange things. Mitchell Collinson. Who's the better brother, Mario or Luigi? Like the obvious answer would be Mario, but I'm gonna go with Luigi because I like the underdog and I like the color green. Both of which Luigi is or has, so it reminds me of a comic which has done the rounds on Reddit and other places. Some of you might have seen it, where it's like Mario and Luigi walk into their house and their mom is like, "Oh, look, it's the Mario brothers." And Luigi's like, "Mama, how come you never remember me? Remember my name?" And their mom's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Green Mario." Anyway, it's funnier if you read the comic. Okay. Oddbo Beaster asks, when did you get into PC gaming? PC gaming is something I've done for a long time because, again, when I was really young, like 5 or 6 or whatever, that's all we had. I did not have an NES at that time or a Super Nintendo. So I did all of my early gaming on our old 486, and then we got a Pentium 166 megahertz, and then after that we had I want to say it was like a Celeron 1.2 gigahertz or something. Oh, I can't remember after that, but I think I got my own PC. No, there was another one in there. Anyway, I've been gaming on PCs for a long time, and I got into the PC gaming hardware side of stuff in middle school, I guess. So kind of grade 7-ish. I spent a lot of time in the computer lab, and the computers teacher there let us do some sort of tech crew kind of stuff, help out with some of the setting up the computer stuff, and it sort of just took off from there through high school. It was just, my group of friends was really into PCs and computer hardware and stuff, and it's been a hobby ever since. Spencer Crane wants to know, would you consider doing Hearthstone ASMR videos? Yeah, I have played Hearthstone. I am not playing right now. I've never been very good at Hearthstone, and really only played competitively a tiny bit, by which I mean like just tried the arena and stuff. Let's be honest, I suck. I'm really not very good, and I don't. If I wanted to, I could invest the time in, learning the current strategies and sort of the meta game and stuff. But, just like with Magic or something, you can put the time in and you can do all right. But it's time consuming to learn that stuff, and got a lot of other stuff going on. So I don't play a lot of Hearthstone anyway. But I do appreciate it from a design perspective. I think it's a really well done refinement of principles set down by CCGs like Magic the Gathering. And that's what Blizzard's good at, right? They're great at really taking other people's ideas and polishing them to a lustrous shine, which is sort of what they've done with Hearthstone. Victor Plitt, RPG or FPS? I like them both, but RPG. RPGs are probably my favorite genre. He also wants to know space games or fantasy games. Fantasy games. But I do love space games as well, and I might have said space games if there were more good space games out there. But although we're sort of seeing a resurgence of the space sim right now between Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous and those kinds of games. It's sort of a renaissance for the space sim. So that's cool. I'd love to see another Star Wars space sim, another TIE Fighter game. That would be awesome. Mac Bassett 14. My favorite Bioshock game? The first one. The original. Just really loved that setting. I really loved the atmosphere of that. I never actually played much of 2, although, I mean, it's a continuation of the same setting. And Infinite is beautiful and really cool, and it's amazing what they've brought to life there, but the first Bioshock will always hold a special place in my heart, I think. Joe Marsden, 68, asks, what is your favorite empire to play in Civ 5? I play a lot of them. It kind of depends on my mood, or just sometimes I'll be like, let's try this Civ. I haven't really played them before. But I do play the Greeks a lot, just because I like the flavor of, I like Greek history, and their bonus to, city-state relations is pretty good too. And their hoplite, or decent early game unit. Soft Serenity ASMR, who I mentioned last video. I should point out too, someone in the comments to the previous video mentioned that they couldn't find her on YouTube, and I noticed that unless you type it in all as one word, her videos don't seem to show up for whatever reason, just the way YouTube's search algorithms work. So just type in Soft Serenity ASMR, all one word, in YouTube, and her channel will pop up. But she wants to know what's my favorite game from the Legend of Zelda series. I've got to go with the obvious, or the easy answer, Ocarina of Time, which I have a lot of strong nostalgia for. I actually played it mostly at a friend's place. We traded off the controller many times. Ocarina of Time is probably my favorite, but I also really enjoyed Phantom Hourglass, which was on the DS, and I also really enjoyed the more recent 3DS Link Between Worlds. I thought that was really well done too. So big spread of Zelda games there. Erwin Dedic, I think is how you pronounce that. It's got the little accent. Oh no, that would be a little Cedilla, under the sea. This is over the sea. Dedic? I don't know. Anyway, Erwin wants to know, have I ever played any of the Shin Megami Tensei games? I think I'm saying that right. No, actually I haven't. It's my understanding that these games include the Persona games. I had a friend, or I have a friend, but he was at one point totally obsessed with Persona 3. And he lent it to me, and I never played it for whatever reason. I think I still have it, actually, sitting in a box in a closet somewhere, probably. But no, I've never played any of those games. But a lot of people seem to like them. So probably worth checking out. Nick Stare asks, who do I main in Smash? Any Smash, doesn't matter which. My Smash, Super Smash Brothers Smash, just for those of you who weren't aware. My Smash jam was first Super Smash Brothers back on N64, and I mained Samus, and I still do. I've never been really very great at Smash or fighting games in general, but I have always played Samus in Smash games, although I also enjoy playing Link. Justin the Leprechaun asks, can I do a barrel roll? Which is a Star Fox reference. Sure, yes, of course I can. I've actually got Star Fox 64 3D for 3DS, which I kind of played a bit of and then sort of let sit, but I should really get back to that. That's like the story of this whole question and answer video now. It's like, what are all these games that you haven't played or haven't played enough of? Yeah, anyway. Okay, what do we got next? Are you a Metal Gear fan or familiar with the story? No. The Metal Gear series is one that I've never got into. I know next to nothing about it. I know it's got a crazy mythology, like a crazy backstory. It's just all over the place. It's kind of lots of larger than life characters, but no. I am afraid I am not particularly a Metal Gear fan or familiar with the story. Oh, that was asked by Valtteri R. Black Lotus and Evad for ASMR ask, do I like Hearthstone? Which I kind of already answered, so yes, I like it. I think it's a very well-made game. I don't play a lot of it because I'm not great and I'm not willing to invest the time in becoming better. What is your all-time favorite game? I kind of answered that already too. Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I'm going to keep it at that, because if I think about it too hard, I'll probably start having internal conflict. I have too many games that I love. That was asked by Big Sam Soke and Little Bird. Favorite game genre? Answered that too. I didn't do a very good job of amalgamating these questions, apparently. This was asked by Little Green Dragon and Andrew B and Ghosty. But RPGs are my favorite games. I like visiting another world, living another life, immersing myself in another place, and RPGs tend to be the games that do that best. Robbie Dolan wants to know if I play any MOBAs. Nope, I don't. I've never been able to get into Dota or LoL or anything like that. I played a little bit of LoL a long time ago. It just never grabbed me. I understand the appeal. I can see why people like those games. But I just don't think they're for me. And the common complaint is, the fairly hostile, newbie hostile communities, the kind of toxic atmosphere that breeds. Makes it hard to get into. Especially with games like Dota 2, which are just so outrageously complex. So no, I don't, although I do have my eye on Heroes of the Storm, which is Blizzard's MOBA that's I think it's still closed beta, but opening up slowly. I do want to try that out because I've heard it's much more newbie friendly. It reduces the complexity. It kind of distills down the MOBA formula and takes the best bits and puts it in the Blizzard universe, which is pretty cool. Mark Johnson asks, worst game I've ever played. The worst game I've ever played. I kind of make a point of not playing bad games, because there's so many good games out there that I don't want to waste my time on crappy ones. I can't think of any really bad games that I've played off the top of my head. Nope, nothing's coming to mind. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll think of something as we're going down the rest of the questions, but for whatever reason, I can't think of any bad games. Or not. I mean, I've played some mediocre games, but nothing bad. Oh, okay. Dungeon Lords, which was an RPG. I couldn't tell you when it came out, but I want to say maybe 2005-ish, 2006, thereabouts. It was like a third-person action RPG. My impression of it was it wasn't awful, but it just really didn't stand out. The combat was kind of lame, and the world felt kind of flat and boring, and I dropped it pretty quickly. I never got very far into it, so I guess maybe that's one of the worst games I've played. Maybe. Steph White asks, Nintendo or Sega? I think she's referring to sort of their golden ages during the 90s. Yeah, Nintendo wins hands down for me. To heavy hitters again, like your Marios, your Zeldas, your Metroids, your Pokemons. Pretty hard to beat. Your Donkey Kongs. Love all those games. Classic. And the N64 was just such a freaking great console. So many good games on there. So yes, Nintendo during the Sega Nintendo rivalry heyday. Although by the time the N64 was out, Sega was already on its way down. So Tyler Sweden wants to know, if you were to make a game, what would it be called, and what kind of game would it be? Very good question. Making a game is something that I kind of have on my bucket list. I think I would be really sad if I got to be old and frail and I hadn't made a game in my lifetime of some kind. But obviously making a game is no small commitment. You have to learn a tool set, you have to learn a bit of programming, you have to have some kind of art competency if you want to put something together, and you have to be committed to hundreds and hundreds of hours. Even for simpler games, you need to be able to put in at least dozens. But if I were to make a game, it would be an RPG. Obviously, I'm pretty inspired by a lot of things like Pokémon, as well as like action RPGs, like the Diablo games. I've got ideas. I've got lots of ideas. In fact, I've got a design document that I've been working on for a long time. I'm not going to talk too much about it here, just in case I do end up turning it into something one day. I don't really have the skills right now, but I have been slowly learning GameMaker and GML, which is GameMaker scripting language, and dabbling in a little bit of pixel art in my limited free time. And one day, I'll make something cool. No, I'm working on it. I have no idea what it would be called, though. Maybe we'll find out. Good question. Brett Crawford, Lily Amano, and Lanik want to know if I could pick a game universe to live in and a character class or character within that game universe, what would they be? I do Star Wars, probably. Or Pokemon. Maybe Pokemon, and I'd be a Pokemon trainer. That's pretty boring. Either that, or I'd do Star Wars, and I'd be maybe pilot. Also kind of boring and rote, but or a Jedi. Oh man, Jedi versus Pokemon trainer. Oh, you can't ask me to make this decision. Lightsabers versus Charizard. Can't be done. Both. Dr. Truthiness and Hunter Lindbergh ask, what video game had the biggest impact on you growing up? Hmm. I think this question was sort of from the perspective of like a piece of art, like video games as art, or something more than just a game, if I recall the context. Hmm. I'm gonna go with Age of Empires, the first one and the second, but mostly the first. And I'm gonna go with that because that is a game that kickstarted a lifelong love of ancient history, ancient civilizations, especially Mediterranean history. It is a large part of why I went on a trip to Greece and Turkey. I mean, indirectly, it's part of, but it's what started that interest, which carries on to this day. So the first Age of Empires game had a big impact on me growing up. James Garrett wants to know if I like the Final Fantasy series. Yes, but I haven't played any of the newer ones, or even like what most people consider the classic ones, like Final Fantasy VII and stuff. Never played them. JRPGs and I have a funny relationship. I don't really know why. Like, I do enjoy them. Like your turn-based, like Pokemon, obviously. I really enjoyed the Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest games. And I really enjoyed the older Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy IV was one of my favorites, /2, depending on when you played it, but it's technically Final Fantasy IV. So the early Final Fantasy games, definitely, like the first ones, but I kind of stopped playing them, and I never really got into what most people these days would consider the Final Fantasy games, like the classics. Which is probably a shame. I probably missed out on a lot of really cool stuff, but I feel like that's the kind of thing that's hard to go back to now. Because I think a lot of people's love of games like FF7 is due largely to associations they made with the characters and sort of the nostalgia factor that stuff brings. I could be wrong, but I think it would be hard to go to now, going to it for the first time, playing it for the first time. Wilfredo Hernandez asks my favorite PlayStation era RPG, which is appropriate because we were just talking about the Final Fantasy games. But I never really played them much, like I said. Not the PlayStation era ones anyway. I really loved a game called The Legend of Dragoon, which was another Japanese RPG. And again, it's sort of funny that I would have enjoyed The Legend of Dragoon but never played the Final Fantasy games. Don't ask me why. Or the PlayStation era Final Fantasy games. But it was another kind of traditional style JRPG. It was just one that I happened to have. I borrowed it from a friend, actually. And I really enjoyed Legend of Dragoon. I'll say that's one of my favorite PlayStation era RPGs. Harry de Hamster says, which do you prefer more? The Elder Scrolls games or the Fallout games? The Elder Scrolls games. They're both great series. As I mentioned earlier, I've played the Fallout games and enjoy them. And of course I love the Elder Scrolls games, but the Elder Scrolls games hold a very dear place in my heart. And I do generally prefer fantasy over post-apocalyptic stuff. The Elder Scrolls games are just so pretty. The worlds are so fun to explore. Elder Scrolls. Gamer Z wants to know, what's my favorite MMO? Guild Wars 2. It's what I'm playing right now. I've played a lot of other MMOs. I've played some sort of free-to-play, random ones. I've played some premium ones, like I played the Old Republic. I play the Elder Scrolls Online. I still currently do. But Guild Wars 2 is my favorite MMO. It fits my play style. It's more it's kind of aimed at more casual players, I think. So I like it for that reason. Dan Dubs Halo asks, "What do you have a favorite FPS?" Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the Thief games, Thief 1 and 2, the Dark Project and the Metal Age, respectively. But they're more first-person stealth, not so much first-person shooters, although you do shoot arrows. But if I had to pick a favorite FPS of all time, I'm going to go with Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, which was the third game in the Dark Forces, I guess. Well, it wasn't titled Dark Forces anymore, but you still play as Kyle Katarn. It's the second Jedi Knight game. Although my favorite part of that game was the lightsaber combat, it wasn't the shooting per se. So, but that game had some wicked lightsaber combat, so good, and lots of awesome multiplayer matches. I guess TF2 is also got to be up there for my favorite FPS, or competitive, class-based, team-based FPS. Favorite Guild Wars 2 class? Mr. K wants to know. Elementalist. I mean Elementalist, and I love the Elementalist the most because they are extremely versatile, and it took me a long time to learn how to play Ellie well. I still don't play it super well, but I play it all right. But even just getting the hang of putting down fire fields, blasting them to stack might and stuff, switching between your attunements and using your conjured weapons and stuff. It's just, Elementalist in Guild Wars 2 is a really quite complex class if you get down to it. There's a lot going on there, and it's easy to play as just like spam the whatever 1 through 5 skills, but if you want to play a good Ellie, it's tough. And I feel when I play Ellie these days, I feel like my fingers are like dancing across the keyboard. I feel like they're constantly moving, constantly switching attunements and blasting fields and stacking might and swiftness and stuff. It's a very fun, very challenging class, but very rewarding class to play. Kevin McGraw wants to know if I like The Last of Us. I have not played The Last of Us. I've seen a lot of gameplay from it and heard a lot about it, but I actually haven't played it. I have this weird relationship with like zombie fiction and post-apocalyptic stuff in general. I kind of got worn out on it like a long time ago. I don't really know why. I know a lot of people really love it. I'm not dissing it or anything. I think there's really cool stories to be told there, but I'm just kind of tired of zombies, I think. But that being said, I'm probably missing out on something really cool with The Last of Us because I've heard a lot about it, and I know that it is a very well presented, very moving, very good game. Maybe I'll check it out one day. Eric Stevens wants to know if I enjoy tabletop RPG games, and could I do a character creation video with some kind of tabletop RPG, like an ASMR character creation. Yeah, I do enjoy tabletop RPGs. I've played my fair share of D&D, Pathfinder, and also the most recent Star Wars RPG system, which is Star Wars Empire at War and Age of Rebellion, which are both based off the same game system from Fantasy Flight. In fact, I GM'd Edge of the Empire game for a while, and that was a lot of fun. So if I was going to do a character creation video, it would probably be for Edge of the Empire, because that's the one I have all the source books for right now, or the main rule book and a couple source books. I think I do actually somewhere on my channel. Do I? Or maybe I don't. For a second I thought maybe I had a video where I looked at the book, the rule book for Edge of the Empire, but I don't think I do. I do have a... now I don't remember. You can go check if you're curious. I will go check after I'm done filming. It would have been a long time ago. It would be one of my earlier videos. I do know I did dice. I used the Star Wars dice, and I kind of make some sounds with them from Edge of the Empire. But I don't know if I ever actually looked at the book in a video. Ghosty wants to know, what game are you most excited for in 2015? I'm excited for a Fallout 4 announcement. If that ever comes, it's got to happen this year. It must. Bethesda's been too quiet for too long. Bethesda Game Studios, that is. And they've got to be working on Fallout 4. There's nothing else they could be doing, except for, I guess, the next Elder Scrolls game, which would also be really freaking cool if they announced. But I think we're going to get a Fallout first. I think it's going to be a long time before we see a new Elder Scrolls game. I don't expect Fallout 4 to release this year, though. I think we'll hear about it, but I don't think we're going to see it till 2016. So maybe that doesn't count. I'm really excited for The Witcher 3. The Witcher games are fantastic RPGs, and The Witcher 3 looks balls to the wall awesome in every way. And I'm really excited for the new Battlefront game that DICE is developing. Really keen to see what they do there. Ghosty also asks if I've played Xenoblade Chronicles. A little bit. I actually played it a bit via Dolphin emulator, because I never owned it for Wii, but I heard really good stuff about it and I wanted to check it out. So I was a dirty pirate and I downloaded it and tried it out on Dolphin emulator, and it seemed really cool. I know that there is a 3DS version coming out, which is going to work only with the new 3DS, which is not even out yet, but maybe that'll give me a good reason to go buy a new 3DS and get Xenoblade Chronicles for it. We'll see. Not that I really need an excuse to buy a new 3DS. I don't know, it seems kind of frivolous. I'll probably trade in my current 3DS XL. Drew Kratz asks, if you could change something about the public's perception of video games, what would it be? Good question. Very thought-provoking question. There's probably a lot of things that I would change, but a lot of the negative stereotypes and perceptions that the public tends to hold about video games are changing on their own slowly. It's just a cultural shift that's taking time. But I fully believe that, within, 20, 30 years, certainly, 50 years down the road, video games will be considered a legitimate form of art and, entertainment media on par with the prestige of, movies and music and good literature and all that kind of stuff. I think the medium still has a lot of growing up to do, a lot of evolution to undergo. And I'm not saying I wanted to turn into some kind of pretentious hoity-toity thing where but the proliferation of indie games in the last 5 to 10 years has gone so far towards validating, I think, gaming as something more than just child's play. And also the extreme success of giant blockbuster games. Gaming's come a long way over the last decade, and it's only going to continue to grow and become more popular and more culturally relevant. So that doesn't really answer the question. I guess I would like to see gaming taken more seriously by more people. I would also like to see the link between youth violence and video gaming debunked. Obviously, there are limits as to what you want to have your child playing, like at certain ages. Like, I think that's absolutely fine. I think the ESRB ratings that they put on games are great guidelines. Although different kids reach different maturity points at different times, so it should be down to each individual parent and each individual game on a case-by-case basis, I think. But I think the general sort of public perception that, this guy played a whole bunch of XYZ, whatever, shooter of the month, and then he went and shot up a school or something, you know, and oh, look at he played those violent video games, you know. Again, that's becoming less and less of a thing, but it's still, this, you know, the specter of that stuff still appears in the media with some regularity. So I think we need to see the public move beyond that. Because it's just, yeah. Anyway. Okay, we are at, gosh, like almost an hour here again. I still got quite a few questions left to go here. So I'm going to try and get through at least the gaming questions, all the gaming questions today. I must. And there's no doubt that there will be a third part to this video, or this Q&A. If you're still watching, bravo. Thanks for sticking around. If you make it to part 3, I'll be impressed. Okay. Professor Sheen asks if I played Shadow of the Colossus. Nope. Another fantastic sounding game that I've just never played. But again, I don't really know why I missed it, but I do love the sense of scale that I, you know, get from just looking at the artwork I've seen from that game and the screenshots and stuff. It does look like something special. Probably another one I should try out. I know that there was an HD remake for PS3, I think, wasn't there? Pretty sure. Are you excited for Majora's Mask HD remake for 3DS? Steven Hernandez wants to know. Yeah, definitely. I will totally be picking that up, and I look really forward to revisiting that game. Because I never played it all the way through originally on N64. But it was definitely very unique for its time. Something quite different. Had a unique flavor that no other Zelda game has had. So yes, very much looking forward to playing through that on 3DS. 11 Tasty Tea is what I've got written down here. And maybe I just wrote that down wrong. Or not. I don't know. When you play a game that has an option of being moral or immoral, what path do you take? I am an insufferable goody two-shoes in most games. I just feel like too much of a dick when I'm playing a nasty, immoral character. I tend to relate a lot to the characters that I play, and so I have a hard time being a jackass in games. It just makes me feel bad. So I tend to play the most sickeningly sweet Paragon type characters, but not always, but usually. QX Padam asks, which games got you into video games? Which is a pretty broad question, and I think I've kind of covered that. I've talked about a lot of the games that I played when I was younger. Yeah, certainly some of my first game experiences are Solitaire, Humble Beginnings, that Alien Force game I mentioned, Hocus Pocus, and then later on action RPGs like Diablo, which I played very young. I probably was too young to play a game like that, but I did anyway, and I turned out fine. The old Infinity Engine BioWare games like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I never played Planescape Torment at the time when it came out, but Icewind Dale, and then, you know, Diablo 2 and stuff. Then also a lot of those older RTSs like Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, Warcraft 2, Age of Empires, all that stuff. So lots of PC games because that's what I had at the time. Sean Noko, do you use Steam? And what do you play? Yes, I definitely use Steam. I played everything, tons of stuff. I don't know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. My Steam library is more of a pile of shame than a library. It's just full of games that I've touched for an hour and then never played again. But I've got like probably over 250 or 300 games in my Steam library by this point, I must. Yeah, if you are a PC gamer and you have Steam, you know, Steam library like that, you know what I'm talking about. The pile of shame never really gets any smaller. Omega Rants and Vlogs wants to know what my thoughts on Warhammer 40k are. Well, I have a video up on this channel where I'm painting, although it's not 40k, I guess. I'm painting a Warhammer Fantasy High Elf, but 40k I used to play quite a bit. I had a Tyranid army, and I like it. It's a good game. It's a fun tabletop game, but I kind of got out of it because, again, it's just very time consuming. It's fairly costly. Like, they do charge a lot of money for that stuff, but you can still have fun games, and without spending a whole ton of money. You don't need huge points values and stuff to have a good game. So I like it. 40k is great. I just haven't played it for quite some time. Okay, so now we have some gaming related questions that are asking sort of hardware related questions. Emil Seba Sheckler and Nick Subota want to know what my PC specs are. I post them in the video description for every gaming video I do, but really quick rundown. I've got Intel Core i7 4770K overclocked right now at 4.4 gigahertz. I could push it further, but I'm not going to for now. It gets a little bit unstable, especially when rendering videos, which is, I don't like it crashing when I'm rendering videos. So I cool that thing with a Noctua NHD14, which is a gigantic air heatsink. 120 millimeter fan, 140 millimeter fan on it from Noctua. Really good. Very quiet. I've got a GeForce GTX 980, the Asus Strix edition, which I've got overclocked at about 1.5 gigahertz right now on the core and 8 gigahertz on the memory, which is wicked stupid fast, and it could go further, but again, I'm not pushing it right now. But it took that like a champ, and it's got more headroom. And I've got 16 gigs of G.Skill Trident X DDR3 2400 RAM, cast latency 10. I've got a 256 gig SSD, ADATA XPG SX900, I think it's called. My storage drives are just a Western Digital Black 1 terabyte and a Toshiba drive. What else have I got in there that's exciting or interesting? Yeah, my case is an old Antec P182 special edition, so it's all like mirrored finish. The thing is heavy as a box of hammers. My power supply is an EVGA Supernova G2 750 watt modular power supply, 80 plus gold rated efficiency. Yeah, that's kind of all the exciting stuff in there, I guess. That's basically everything. Rollout Vlogs and Steph White ask, do you prefer PC or console? I think it's probably pretty obvious given my last answer and what I've said previously, but I do most of my gaming on PC. Which is to say I don't enjoy gaming on consoles. Like, they certainly have their place, and it's there's some really great console exclusives, especially first-party Nintendo stuff. But I do most of my gaming on PC, and I really get excited about the PC. Zunzol wants some advice for a gaming build. They want to know if they should use SLI to GTX 760s in their gaming rig that they are building. I would actually advise against it. I've done SLI in past. The scaling can be very good. Oftentimes you see 70, 80, sometimes even 90% gains adding that second card. So from a value perspective, it's a pretty appealing option. But SLI comes with it, caveats. The big one is that there has to be an SLI profile for the game that you're playing for SLI to work. And oftentimes, especially for less popular releases, NVIDIA won't have an SLI profile out right away, or at all, ever, occasionally. So that's a bummer, in which case you're only getting the performance of a single card. And I suggest you look up something called micro stuttering. It's not such a problem as it used to be back a couple of generations of cards ago. But sometimes when you use cards in SLI, the frame pacing from frame to frame isn't even. So one frame will be really short and one frame will be longer, and it gives the subjective impression of a low frame rate. It makes it feel like you're getting a much lower frame rate than you actually are. So again, not really an issue so much these days. It used to be though, and but it's worth looking into, checking to see if the 760s suffer from that. Also, just a lot more heat output and therefore noise and stuff in your case. I could go on. But overall, my suggestion is skip the dual 760s and instead get a 970. It'll be cheaper actually than a pair of 760s probably. But I think you'll have a better gaming experience for it. That's my experience, having done SLI a couple of times in the past. I chose not to do it this time around, and I probably wouldn't do it again. Okay, James Garrett, favorite console ever? It's got to be N64, which is probably as much a function of when that console came along in my life as it was, or as it is, what that console had on it. But I just have so many good memories of GoldenEye death matches at sleepovers at my friends' places, and Pokemon Stadium, Perfect Dark, Ocarina of Time, Star Wars games like Episode 1 Racer I really enjoyed on that platform. Smash, Super Mario 64, like just so many freaking fantastic titles on that platform. Harry Lang wants to know, what's your advice for someone looking to get a gaming laptop? My advice is, if you're looking for something reasonably priced, check out Lenovo. They have, very similarly spec'd systems to what you might get from Asus or like MSI, but I've noticed they tend to be a little cheaper. I bought a Lenovo laptop 2 years ago now, and it's still doing really well. It was a sort of a gaming laptop, I guess. It was. It's got a GTX 660M in it, and it still holds its own quite well. But like generally gaming laptops, you're going to pay a lot more for, equivalent performance to what you'd get out of a desktop. That would be a lot cheaper. But if you need the mobility, I'd say don't go any smaller than 15 inches, because it's just hard to game on smaller screens. It's just not comfortable. And don't necessarily spring for a super high res screen, because you're not going to be able to play games at the native resolution on a stupidly high resolution like a 4K screen on a laptop. Mobile graphics just can't push those kinds of pixels. A 1080p screen at 15 inches looks really nice, really sharp, crisp, and is definitely drivable by modern mobile graphics like a GTX 960M or something like that. That's just a sort of a mid-range mobile GPU. Okay, and then some Magic the Gathering related questions. Cecil Mackey, Victor Plitt, and DHPII want to know what one of them wanted to know what my favorite 3 Magic cards were, but I'm just going to go with my favorite single Magic card, I guess. And now that I'm thinking about it, actually, I don't even know what that would be. Actually, I'm going to say this kind of ties in with a question down below, but I'm going to say Mists of Stagnation, which is a blue card from Judgment? I think it was Judgment or Onslaught. I think it was Judgment set. Anyway, and I'll explain why in a moment when I talk about the deck. But those of you who play Magic know that blue cards tend to be kind of dickish a lot of the time. I don't actually like being a dick when I play Magic cards. Um, but that one particular deck was a lot of fun to play. So I'll come back to that. Victor Plitt wants to know my favorite block, MTG block. I really liked, going way back, I liked the Invasion block. I really liked the Mirrodin block. I liked the Odyssey block. I liked the Kamigawa block. More recently, I liked the Innistrad stuff. I liked the Theros stuff. There's probably others too, but those were all good blocks. Vitreous 2 wants to know what my favorite colors are. As I said, I don't actually play a lot of blue these days anyway, because I don't really like being a huge dick, but green, I've always really liked green. I like big stompy creatures, beasts and stuff. They're fun. Stupid, straightforward, brutish fun. So I think green's probably my favorite color. Favorite deck I ever built and why? This is asked by Eric Seguin, or Seguin, I don't know how you pronounce his name, and Evad for ASMR. The one that comes to mind is the one I was mentioning earlier, which was a deck based around Mists of Stagnation. Mist of Stagnation is a blue enchantment, and it basically requires you to remove cards from your graveyard to untap permanents. So permanents do not untap during the untap phase, and yeah, and you can remove cards from your graveyard from the game. Exile them, I guess, by modern Magic parlance, to untap permanents each turn. And so the deck, as you can imagine, was based around putting lots of cards into my graveyard so that I could untap all of my permanents, and removing cards from my opponent's graveyard, so that they would not be able to untap anything, and they just have their hands tied, not being able to untap any mana or creatures to attack. That Mist of Stagnation card comboed really well with another card called Web of Inertia, which similarly... oh no, sorry. I'm getting my wires crossed here. Oh gosh, now I can't remember. It's been so long. Those sets are from a long time ago. I think Mist of Stagnation was you untap a card for... untap a permanent for each card in your graveyard. You don't have to remove the cards from the graveyard. Web of Inertia was a card where you could only attack if you removed cards from your graveyard for each attacking creature. I'm pretty sure. That's funny. It's been so long. Anyway, but that deck was a lot of fun to play. It was very frustrating for people to play against. I had a lot of people rage quit with that deck. It was probably no fun to be the opponent. It just was kind of not super sportsmanlike, but I had fun with that deck. Okay, we're in the home stretch. This is gonna be like an hour and a half. Holy cow. I have some Pokemon related questions. A ton of you wanted to know what my favorite Pokemon is. Nick Forbes, Smurfy Jones, Vinny H, Mikey 369, Richard S, Ryan G, and Lanik all asked what my favorite Pokemon is. This is gonna be a really random choice. Oh no, I don't know. Again, this is a really hard question. I like a lot of Pokemon. I've always really liked Beedrill. That sounds really weird, but I always thought Beedrill was awesome. I generally don't like bug Pokemon. I don't care for them very much, but Beedrill was one of the first Pokemon that I had in one of my first playthroughs, and I just thought it was really cool. It's kind of boring moveset and not super... whatever. I like Beedrill. Maybe it's not my favorite, though. I like Jolteon. Jolteon's my favorite evolution. Mewtwo is awesome. I mean, it's kind of a... It's like, yeah, just go for the cool legendaries, but Mewtwo has just a cool backstory and, like, was a cool character in the first Pokemon movie. I like Mewtwo a lot. Henhouse asks, do I like mudkips? um, yeah, actually. In my latest playthrough in Pokemon Omega Ruby, which I'm playing right now, I picked Mudkip, and so I have Swampert right now. So yes, I like Mudkips. Smurfy Jones and Ryan G want to know what my favorite Pokemon game is. Gold and Silver. Gen 2. Gold, technically, I guess, because that's the one I had. The original Gen 1 is always going to hold a special place in my heart, and I think I like the Pokemon from Gen 1 more. Well, I know I do. I like Gen 1 more for the Pokemon, but for a whole package, the games, Gen 2 is just such a amazing expanding upon what Generation 1 did, and there's just so much more, and it felt so much more involved with like the day and night cycles, different Pokemon depending on the time of day, and then the fact that after you beat the Elite Four you got to go do the whole of Kanto. That's awesome. You got 2 leagues, Johto and Kanto, in one game. Yeah, those were far and away my favorite Pokemon games. Although I really enjoyed X and Y recently. They were a lot of fun. Although way too easy. Found the EXP share made them way too easy. Guitar Hero Ace wants to know, if you could have a real life Pokemon roster, what would you choose and why? Oh man. That's a big question. That's a tough question. Functionally, like if it was real life, I'd really have to think about that, because there's probably certain Pokemon you really want for particular reasons. Like, I don't know, it'd be pretty cool to have something that flies, so you could fly around, like a Charizard maybe. What else? I don't know. I don't know what I'd have. Maybe Mewtwo. It'd be pretty cool to have Mewtwo on my team if he listened to me. Awesome psychic boss. I don't think I can answer that question. I think I'd have to think too much about it. Well, there's a couple anyway. It's a good question. Another question here. Mikey 369 wants to know what team of Gen 1 Pokemon I would make if I could. Okay, let's do this real quick. Let's throw this together. Gen 1, my favorite Pokemon. I would do a Charizard. Start with a Charmander, end up with a Charizard. I would do... Sure, why not a Beedrill? I talked about that already. He can come along. I would have a Dugtrio. I've always liked Dugtrio. I need something for Surf. I'd have a Lapras, maybe. I would have a Dragonite. And how many is that? I think that's 5. And I'd have... Oh, I don't know. Let's say Kabutops. I think Kabutops is pretty cool. I always like Kabutops. Or Scythers. Scythers neat too. I like those guys with the scythes for arms. Aerodactyl. Oh man, Aerodactyl's really cool too. And then there's legendary birds like Zapdos, Moltres, Articuno, which are also really awesome. I'd have them all. I don't know. I can't pick. Can't pick just 6. Okay. Ivan wants to know my favorite Pokemon type and why. Water types. I think. I've always liked water types. I like fire types too, which are kind of diametrically opposed, but okay. And then a handful of Skyrim or Elder Scrolls related questions. These are the last questions. There's like 6 of them. Zach, your Supreme Overlord, Jason Brody, Asclepios27, and me, myself, and ASMR all wanted to know, Empire or Stormcloaks? Where do I stand on the Civil War in Skyrim? They're all awful. The Empire are a bunch of Aldmeri whipped toadies, but they are probably the best thing for Skyrim. I will admit that. And they're the most level-headed and the least xenophobic. The Stormcloaks, on the other hand, are brave. And you know, there's something kind of nice, or like, I don't know the word you're looking for, but like the idea of like fighting for our country, like the Nords should own Skyrim, and yeah, maybe there's some truth to that. Like, but they're also like incredibly racist and kind of dicks. So they're all kind of bad. But if I have to choose, I'd take the Empire usually. But there have been games, playthroughs, where I took neither side because they're all jerks. Okay. Do I enjoy Elder Scrolls Online? Asks JJ all the way 29. Yeah. I enjoy it because it's Elder Scrolls, honestly. If it was any other game universe, I probably wouldn't care. Probably wouldn't still be playing it. I don't play it a lot or particularly often, so it's hard to justify the monthly sub, but it's going free to play, or, you know, buy to play soon, but without a monthly sub. And there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's a totally competent MMO. And if you're invested in the Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls lore and world, then it's probably worth playing, because that's what I enjoy about it. Seeing places that I've only heard about or read about previously is cool. But if you don't really care for that stuff, then there's no real reason to play it over anything else. So Luke ASMR, how's it going, man? I will get back to you about doing that collab. Yeah, I'm terrible about that stuff, but don't take it personally. We'll talk. And you should go check out Luke ASMR's channel if you've never seen his stuff before. Awesome dude, cool videos. Favorite Elder Scrolls game? I kind of went over this, but Luke's is Oblivion, which I really enjoyed. As I have some really fond memories of Oblivion. But man, I really love Skyrim, and man, I really love Morrowind. And I think I gotta give it to Morrowind just for the nostalgia factor and the originality and uniqueness of that world, but I freaking love them all. It's really hard. It's like picking a favorite child. Not Real wants to know what my mod order in Skyrim is. Let me just pull out the list here. No, I'm not gonna go through my entire list. I've got like 200 mods. It would take way too long. But my recommendation for picking a mod load order, just use Loot. It's a tool, and it sorts your load order for you, and it does a really good job. And it warns you of issues and conflicts and stuff. So go download Loot and use it to sort your load order. John Williams wants to know what's my favorite race in the Elder Scrolls games. I really like the Dunmer, the Dark Elves, because of their just totally unique culture, which you really get immersed in Morrowind. But I also really like the Nords, because they're strong sons of Skyrim, and they're just kind of fun to play, you know. Those are probably my two favorite races. Last question. Last gaming related question. Last question of this video is Battleborn or Greymane. For those of you who don't know, these are two clans, two families that are long-standing noble families of Whiterun in Skyrim, and they're having a kind of a feud because one side supports the Stormcloaks and one of them supports the Empire in the Civil War in Skyrim. Now, I know I sided with the Empire earlier when we talked about this, which are the Battleborns. They are the Empire supporters. But in the game, the Battleborns are kind of jerks. They're real jerks, actually. And they like capture one of the Greymane's sons, I think. They're like holding him prisoner in their house, if I recall. The Greymanes seem like cool guys, like a pretty neat family, or like I don't know, Yorland Greymane is the smith at the Skyforge in Whiterun, and he makes pretty neat stuff, and the Skyforge is kind of awesome, so I'm siding Greymane. Oh, that was Dark Side Royalty who asked that question, by the way. We're done for now. That is all the gaming related questions that you guys asked me. Thank you so much for all your questions. If you are still watching or awake, I applaud you. That's amazing. Um, and if you come back for round 3, I will be even more surprised, more impressed. But we got a lot of questions done there, and then there's a final chunk of questions. It's all sort of just personal stuff about me and my likes and dislikes and things that didn't really fit into any other category as well. So that will be part 3, which will be the final part of this Q&A video series, which was not intended to be a series, but anyway. I hope for those of you whose questions I answered, I hope that you liked the answers. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you all once again for your wonderful questions and your enthusiasm with which you went and asked them all. And I look very forward to having you back here for the 3rd and final part of this Q&A series. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.